Welcome to Building Better Businesses, an ABA podcast. Learn firsthand from business owners who built successful ABA businesses. Utilize proven techniques and strategies to help your practice thrive. This is Building Better Businesses, an ABA podcast with Jonathan Mueller.
Dr. Sarah Duarte is a Chief Development Officer at Orion Care Solutions, utilizing OBM to support quality service provision, sustainable program development, and growth. Her doctorate is in behavioral health with a specialization in integrated healthcare management. She's the Outreach and Marketing Committee Chair for AZABA and for World Behavior Analysis Day. And we have a second special speaker today in Elizabeth Drago. Elizabeth has provided behavior analytic treatment for individuals diagnosed with autism for nearly 20 years. She's the president of World Behavior Analysis Day. She serves on the board of directors with the New York State Association for Behavior Analysis, including their legislative committee, working in areas related to public policy. Welcome to the pod, Elizabeth and Sarah.
Thank you.
So happy to be here.
Yes, thank you for the invite.
Well, I'm psyched for this conversation. It's the first time we've got like three of us here chatting through, and it's in honor of a very special occasion coming up shortly, World Behavior Analysis Day on March 20th. And so, Elizabeth, as a president of WBAD, if I can call it that, but like I love the vision to promote international inclusive celebration of the science of behavior analysis and sparks growth in its awareness, acceptance, and use. That's a lofty goal. So Elizabeth, like, what will our world look like when World Behavior Analysis Day has accomplished its goal?
Yeah, that really is a lofty goal, right? When you read that vision, it's a great vision. I feel like we'll never be completed or fully accomplished in meeting that goal. I feel like we'll just make successful approximations as we age, and hopefully that will be for years to come. I feel like in order to fully describe my future hopes and dreams for World Behavior Analysis Day, I need to go back and talk about possibly the origins a little bit, and that'll give you an understanding of the answer to your question. So let me go back a few years. So as you mentioned, I'm a rep at large on the New York State Association for Behavior Analysis. So I'm a board member, and one of my roles that I assigned to myself as that board member was to develop a unique, initiative that I can bring to the board for NYSABA as far as how am I going to represent behavior analysis in my state of New York. And so I wanted to create this idea of disseminating the science of behavior analysis and all its utility, right? Because as behavior analysis, even though I know, Jonathan, you're not a behavior analyst, but you do appreciate the science and you understand the science. And so it's not just for, the benefit of an individual groups of folks, let's say with a certain diagnosis. It's the utility of it is just so vast and applied to just behavior in general in any context, any diagnosis. And so I felt like to kind of get that message out, what's the best way I can do that? Well, everyone loves these national days, right? International days, and it's fully recognized and accepted by everyone. And so I said, why not kind of like go in through the back door in a sense and have this, national, international day for behavior analysis. And so I brought it to the directors of NYSABA, the idea, and they embraced it. They, helped, pave the way for it to become what it is today by connecting me with some key folks in the field that really, embraced it as well. And, we formed this amazing team. Sarah was part of that team in developing the International Day. And it is now, as you mentioned, Jonathan, this incredible celebration from March 14th through March 20th, a week-long celebration of the science. And as I mentioned, it's to help for others to understand the utility of it and how it's applicable to anyone that has behavior. So basically, anyone who's living, breathing, behavior analysis is applied to. And where I really noticed that misunderstanding was, as you mentioned also, Jonathan, I'm on the legislative committee on NYSABA. And so just this past few years, there was an incredible scope restriction on the licensure for practitioners of behavior analysis in New York State. And so as a member of the legislative committee, we had to speak to a lot of legislators, a lot of folks in the community, and just educate them on what behavior analysis was and is. And it was really eye-opening how it's so incredibly misunderstood. Right? A lot of people would say, well, isn't it like psychology, or I heard that's just a treatment for autism, and there's just so much more. I mean, as we know, it's a science that's applied in, fitness and education and organizations and, geriatrics and education. It's just wherever there's behavior, as I mentioned, there's behavior analysis. And so that was one of my hugest goals, right, is to help educate people on understanding it's way more than just a treatment for autism. There's so many uses for the technology. And so that was my catalyst to developing World Day. Also to bridge the gap, literally bridge the gap of practitioners just across the entire globe practicing behavior analysis. I wanted to see us come together to unify, even if it was for that 1 week in the entire year, right? Especially now, there's so much division on so many levels, on so many issues. If we can just have that 1 week where we come together, we celebrate something we all have in common, which is behavior analysis. How great is that, right? It's just so amazing to share that and to meet these other people across the globe that are practicing behavior analysis in the capacity that they're able to with the resources they have. It's amazing. It's an amazing experience to learn about, how the science is growing in their region. And we have ambassadors as part of World Behavior Analysis Day. And I believe, and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, we have 21 ambassadors representing 21 different regions internationally. And so it's just so great. We're just scratching the surface of what the potential is. And so, my very long answer to your question is just the unity, it's the education, it's encompassing that vision that you just described. And that is my goal. And, I hope we never achieve it. Honestly, I hope we just have successful approximations and just continue going strong for years to come.
Elizabeth, you're speaking to my heart because I'm so fond of this idea that we need to pay it forward in our field, right? And be like the shoulders on which the next generation of behavior analysts, of scientists, of practitioners of our discipline in its many varied forms can stand on. And the fact that you're so right, we don't see enough collaboration. And so the idea that we can all come together for this week, I think is an important gesture that helps us get closer. So Sarah, I want to ask you, and I'll be full transparency, a little over a year ago, I had never heard of World Behavior Analysis Day. And then Sarah, you posted something, I think on LinkedIn about it. And I was like, dude, I don't know what this is, but if Sarah is in, then I am in. What got you so excited, Sarah, to become involved, and why should ABA practices care about it?
Yeah, I think, there's a couple things that stand out for me with that question. The first thing is that I think a lot of us are very good at celebrating. We're good about celebrating forward progress, fun things, ourselves, our accomplishments, our community, each other. And that's really what interests me, right? Bringing people together and enjoying all of our hard work. And I've noticed that there's this fast-paced culture happening, and we're all just kind of working and not taking a moment to sit back and reflect on our practice and our progress. And so this is really a moment of pause, I think, for our entire community, to kind of just settle into that celebration. So that was really important to me. And then also just when I first became a behavior analyst, when someone would ask me like, oh, what do you do for work? It was always like, that tough question, like, how do I explain this, at a dinner party? How do I explain this, at an event? And I got better with it over the years, but that also carries weight when you're trying to work in public policy, right? So like, not only is it difficult to explain to our friends and our family, but when we're trying to move forward very important initiatives and we have to explain to key stakeholders what behavior analysis is, it can create some barriers, right? It can delay some things that are really important for our field. So when Elizabeth reached out to me and explained, like, yes, of course, this is a celebration, right? Which, again, very interested in that. But also, we need to increase awareness because we have all this other work that we need to do that's really dependent on people knowing what behavior analysis is. So I think that's why we should all be involved, right? Because it's not just for one organization or one part of what we do. It's really for all of us, in that forward progress.
Well said. When someone asks me what behavior analysis is, you know what I tell them? I'm like, it's like the force. Dude, I can change, not I, because I'm not a practitioner, but a BCBA can literally change your behavior without touching you or anything else, just reshaping your environment. I mean, it's so profound what our science does, right? Oh man, it's Elizabeth, what's break down WBAD for me. So the day it's like, what happens on March 20th and in the run up to it?
Yeah, so last year, I should mention, last year was our first year of celebrating, and we just celebrated on March 20th. And March 20th, for those who don't know, is B.F. Skinner's, the founder of behavior analysis, his birthday. So that's why we chose March 20th. Yes. That's why we chose March 20th to celebrate. And so, this year we wanted, and going forward, we wanted to make it more inclusive in a sense of, everybody getting on board to celebrate. Because there are some holidays that are being acknowledged during that week or that day in particular. And so, which the holidays, maybe some practices, they can prevent folks really fully engaging in the day. And so we wanted to extend it to make it, a little longer, to give more people the opportunity to celebrate. And so we chose March 14th through the 20th, and our proclamation was revised. It initially read the 20th of March, but we revised it formally, and so now it specifically says the 14th through the 20th. And so we released just yesterday the teaser video for the celebration that Dr. Paulie Gavoni and Anika Costa, who is a behavior analyst, they produced it and they filmed it, and with the collaboration of World Behavior Analysis Day board members, they did a great job in explaining, what's to be expected. We have a lot of fun things planned for the week. We do have merchandise we're giving away. We have a great t-shirt with our theme. So our theme this year, and we're going to try to pick a theme each year, is Together in One Science, Behavior Analysis. And so that's reflected on our t-shirts. We're going to be having stickers. We have some great campaigns that we're running during the week. And some examples of that is quotes from notable behavior analysts as to why they became a behavior analyst. We're also going to be doing a reflection on the behavior analysts who have passed away within the last year. We're going to highlight that. And also just everyday examples of what behavior analysis is, right? Going back to the utility of the science and how behavior analysis, we engage in, the practices and the techniques and the strategy. We don't even realize we're doing it, right? And so we're just highlighting some things that we do on a daily basis that we're engaging in the science of behavior analysis, just to make it, a little more real for folks who don't have that full understanding. And so that's going to be really fun. We also have a kickoff video that's premiering on BF Skinner's birthday on the 20th. And in that video, we're going to just be a little bit more descriptive in regards to what behavior analysis is and how it does make meaningful changes in people's lives. And so I believe that covers everything. Sarah, am I missing anything there? We got a lot going on.
Yeah, we got a lot going on, but that was a good summary. I think also just like, we're kind of like the party starters, right? But like you need people to come to the party. So the celebration really is about everyone. So for me, what's really fun and interesting is hearing how other people are celebrating. So some people are having like guest speakers at their organizations or doing like fun parties, staff parties or giveaways. So that's really cool to start seeing that stuff come through. So really what we're looking for is like everyone to be engaged in the celebration, but we'll get it started.
Yeah, we're the party starters.
Well, Sarah, if I'm an ABA practice owner and I want to get involved because I heard merch. Elizabeth, I think you mentioned merch. So whenever merch is involved. But if I'm an ABA practice owner, how do I get involved?
Yeah, I think that there's so many different ways, like, putting together a staff party on Zoom. A lot of folks did that last year and they came together and they celebrated things they love about the science, in community. And then other folks are, supporting the celebration by having, not a conference, but like a little workshop, and hiring a behavior analyst that their staff has been like wanting to hear from, come in. Some people like contacted the news last year and they like in their local, region and kind of shared what behavior analysis was. So there's a lot of different ways, to get involved, and you don't have to reach out to anyone. You can just do that within your organization. Although I'd love to hear about it and we can share that with other folks. But anything that you can think of, like a lot of teams we saw wear kind of blue on that day because our logo is different shades of blue. So that was cool. And art, we had a lot of artists submit their representation of behavior analysis around the world. That was incredible. So there's so many ways, so many creative ways.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, Jonathan, were you about to say something? I cut you off.
Please, no, Elizabeth, go for it.
I was just going to add, as far as social media, when you're celebrating, to our hashtag this year is WeBad22, and follow us also. We're on social media. We're everywhere. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We're about to get on LinkedIn very soon. Jonathan, you're part of our marketing committee, which is amazing to have you. And I know you said you're going to lead that up for us, so that's exciting. So tag us. Let us know what you're doing. We also put this on our website, so there is a special dedicated tab on our website for celebration, and we do highlight organizations that are celebrating. So definitely, get involved. It's fun.
Nice. Well, one of the things that you've highlighted, and that I think maybe not as many practitioners in our field appreciate, is that this is like a universal science, right? It's like physics, right? Physics exists in all conditions and has all kinds of different applications. Behavior analysis is not just about one type of diagnosis or one type of treatment. And so I want to ask each of you this question. What's like the most interesting application of behavior analysis that most practitioners in our field might not know about? And I'll start, and then maybe I'll kick it over to Sarah and then you, Elizabeth. But I remember reading back in the 90s, Mozambique went through a civil war for decades. And so there are landmines all over the country. And it would take a human 2 days to clear a tennis court size area of landmines, and clearly there's all kinds of safety risks, right? Well, there was, I don't know if it was a BCBA at the time, but it was a behavior analyst, a practitioner who came out and trained African pouch rats. True story, African pouch rats to sniff and detect landmines, and they could do it. Remember, humans, it would take 2 days. It took African pouch rats 20 minutes to cover a tennis court. Isn't that unbelievable?
Amazing.
Like, so anyway, I think
Absolutely.
this is the power of like literally behavior analysis making our world a safer place and more efficient place. But Sarah, what's an application that you want to share?
Well, that is a very interesting one. And I remember learning about that a couple of years ago and I was blown away. Yeah, I think similar to that, there was a behavior analyst that was hired to join a crew. So it was a fishing boat, and there was a ton of accidents along the, I guess, line of, I don't know if it's a service line, but where they kind of pass the fish along to each other. Basically, the workflow was not working at an efficient, in an efficient way, and people were getting injured. So they had this behavior analyst come in and sort of analyze how the workflow was, what the system was, and then they, I guess, just started interventions at the different phases and adjusted the workflow, and the injuries went down, like, I think it was like 80%, and the productivity increased, twofold. And so that was something very interesting that obviously makes sense with what we know how to do, but I've just never heard of it applied in that condition. So that was really interesting for me.
That's awesome.
Super cool. Again, making the world or work a safer place and a more efficient place. Elizabeth, do you have one you want to share?
Yeah, there are so many areas of behavior analysis that just fascinates me, and I keep learning every day. Even though I've been in the field for 20 years, I'm still learning so much about the science. And so, a lot of people aren't aware that behavior analysis is utilized in the treatment of mental health, right? So even significant diagnoses such as schizophrenia, depression, and such, people believe that they need to, seek out a psychiatrist, and oftentimes, yes, it's necessary. I actually had an individual reach out to me many years ago. She was suffering from agoraphobia, and she heard about behavior analysis, and she heard that I was a clinician and she wanted my services. So going back to the issue in New York State, we were restricted at that point. We were not allowed to work with anyone that did not have a diagnosis of autism. And so that was a really unfortunate situation, because I had to inform this person that although I have the skill set to help you, I legally, because of how our licensure law was worded at the time, I wasn't able to, right? And so, luckily, as of this year, actually, last month, that restriction was lifted in New York State. Thank goodness. But it's amazing how many uses the science has. Not even just so. People diagnosed with severe, psychiatric disabilities, but also, in the area of sustainability, right? Cleaning beaches, how, to get people motivated, putting garbage in a garbage can, right? So simple things like that, behavior analysis, there's, space for us to do a lot of work there. Just so many areas. And so it's just such a fascinating thing. Like I said, wherever there's behavior analysis. And so it's fascinating.
ABA practice owners, are billing and insurance issues getting you down? Well, let me tell you, Element RCM is your answer. Element provides world-class revenue cycle management services, contracting, credentialing, authorizations, billing, and more. Element's your partner, so you can focus on what you love to do, providing the highest quality services to your families and clients. Element's a preferred partner of the Behavioral Health Center of Excellence, and its founders have nearly 20 years of experience owning and operating successful ABA organizations. They understand you. They know that every dollar counts, that integrity is everything. Element works with any practice management system, and Element's not a vendor, they're your partner. So find out more and take a free revenue cycle assessment at elementrcm.ai. And spoiler alert, there is behavior everywhere happening all the time, all over the
Yeah, in
place.
case you didn't know that.
Right. That's phenomenal. I'll share just one other thing. So, I am not a behavior analyst, right? But I had my training in economics, and I've got my rickety MBA. And behavioral economics has always been a passion of mine. And Professor Dr. Dan Ariely does a lot of work around what he terms behavioral economics. But there's so many intersections with behavior analysis. And one of the things that he describes is the organ donation rates and how they are so much phenomenally higher in European countries than in the US. And so he got curious about it. He's like, I'm going to study this. And, he had different hypotheses. Well, are the Europeans more, I don't know, giving and generous than Americans? Well, as it turns out, no, that was not the case. But he couldn't figure out what was going on until he realized it was one very simple little thing. And it was all about when you sign up for your driver's license, do you opt in or do you opt out? And in the US, what do? You have to opt in for organ donation, and organ donation rates were something like, I don't know, 10, 20%-ish, not very high. In Europe, they're like 90+% because you have to opt out. And it's just that little act of, if you have to check a box, you're not going to do it. So you slightly reframe the question.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the kind of power, I think, around shaping behavior. So again, WBAD, this day is so important to getting this message out. And Elizabeth, I'm going to ask you a question, maybe just unrelated to that, but you've been so heavily engaged, and you've been a leader in public policy and bringing all of your skill sets to bear. And I know there are a lot of listeners, ABA practice owners, who are interested in doing the same thing, who are also passionate about the science, want to get involved in advocacy, public policy work, but don't know where to start.
Right.
Where should they start?
Yeah, so my first and foremost suggestion is to seek out your state organization, right? Because with the state behavior analytic organization, many, many times they have public policy committees or legislative committees, whatever they're titling them. And so, reaching out, even going online and just researching where they're at with their policies, and maybe just cold calling, cold emailing the chairperson of those committees or the president, or, if you have a contact at the organization, just to see how you can get involved. That's how it happened for me. I was never interested in public policy. I never thought I would ever be involved in any public policy, anything. I was just so far from it. I was very, focused on my work as a clinician. I mean, I've been an applied clinician for many, many years, and I never even thought about that being an interest of mine until I got involved with NYSABA as a rep at large, and we had this incredible restriction on our license, and I said, I want to be a part of this change. This is not okay. We need to get rid of this. And so I joined our committee. It was at that time called the Legislative Committee, and that's where my interest grew. It was just fascinating to see, the workings of just legislature, working with legislators. It's really a fascinating thing in itself, how you can shape other people's behaviors. You're applying, again, behavior analysis and trying to, educate people on how this is useful, right? How this technology is useful to the people, and I'm just making it, personal to New York State, especially. And so that is my number one recommendation. Contact your state organization, see if there's a way you can help. Joining a committee, if possible, absolutely, is what I would suggest. Yeah.
Right on. Well, thank you for sharing of that. And it's true that it's the reluctant leader, I think, in all of us that spurs us on to want to do these things. And now, I mean, you've done extraordinary things that other people can follow in your footsteps on. Also shifting gears just a little bit, Sarah, you and I share a passion for equitable healthcare access. And I've always said healthcare is a human right, and someone's socioeconomic status should not determine the quality of treatment that they receive. But Sarah, what's the most important thing ABA providers can do starting right now to promote equality in healthcare access?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to that question. that I had to learn over the years. So in 2014, when I joined the Public Policy Committee through AZABA, I really didn't know what I was doing there. I really didn't feel like I belonged there. And it was the leaders that said, no one knows how to start. So you just need to start. Like, you're just here. And I think that that was the best piece of advice, although very simple, is like, even if you feel like you don't know how to make change or you don't know what to do, just start. So get involved, like Elizabeth said, reach out to your state orgs, email, sit in on the meetings. You don't have to participate at first. But I think that, setting that forward motion is the biggest step. I do think that one of our skill sets as behavior analysts is to be able to really analyze the situation and identify unintended consequences of policy, right? Well, of anything. But in this case, it would be policy, right? So you can start by looking at the policies that are the laws, the statutes, the rules that are currently in place, and thinking about how does that impact different groups, in its own way, and what are the unintended consequences, and what can happen to remediate that? How do we adjust that to create a more equitable, access or reach or whatever it may be? And then it gets a little bit more complicated, right? Then you have to meet key stakeholders and know where to go with that information. But again, state orgs can help with that. But I think just looking, internally, policies that are in place that might have an unintentional consequence, for certain groups. And you can start there, and that's a smaller level that you can make immediate change, right? Like if it's your organization, you have that control. Public policy is a little bit different, right? That's a further reach, but you can start right away reviewing your policies and your handbook for staff, for incoming families, and take a deep dive, right? Like, have a group look at it. Use organizational tools that help you move through that process. A lot of places have committees, right? So you could set up an internal, EDI group, and that group can use a matrix to review policies, to review, things that are happening at the company. And use a scorecard and give that feedback, and it can be an interactive type of collaboration amongst staff, but that's something that can start right away.
Oh, I love it. Building community and that awareness. At Ascend, we started a cultural awareness committee a few years ago now, and that is powerful. And let me tell you, kind listeners, like Sarah and AZABA, practice what they preach, and look no further than what was about 3.5-4 years ago. Access, which is Arizona's Medicaid program, they actually had 2 separate kinds of health insurance, for physical health and 1 for mental behavioral health. And I mean, think about how many more barriers that introduces, right? I mean, just the fact that you have to double enroll. We were talking earlier, like as human beings, we're reluctant to even check a box because it takes too much time. And the powerful advocacy work that you and AZABA did, that many people worked on, the very collaborative spirit of the of Access and their leadership ended up breaking down those barriers and saying, very rightfully so, hey, this is whole health.
This
is
exactly.
Health, right? There's not physical versus mental, and you all brought that to life.
And that was a very positive collaborative process that many people were a part of. In our AMPM, so our medical policy manual in Arizona, we do not have a restriction on practice, place of service, diagnosis, age. We don't have that, and that took work, right? Like we had to move through that with stakeholders. And it was powerful, and we did it. Lots of people involved, but we can do it, right? We can do it. We just need to work together and have a clear intention behind it. But there's a lot of tools that can help sort of start that reflection process, the identification process. I can send over some to Jonathan, and maybe he can embed them in the notes for this podcast. But you've got to just start, right? You've got to move forward.
Preach, sister. Yes, we will definitely drop that in the show notes. So I want to come back. March 20th is not only World Behavior Analysis Day, Elizabeth, as you pointed out, it's also BF Skinner Day, and I gotta say, like, I'm a homer for BF Skinner. You talk bromance. I don't know, just everything that I've learned about and studied about BF Skinner is powerful. So I want us each to share our favorite BF Skinner quote. I'll start, and I'll kick it over to you, Sarah, and then you, Elizabeth. My favorite BF, which, by the way, this is hard, right? This is like picking your favorite child. You don't do that. You shouldn't be picking your BF Skinner quote, but we're going to do that right now. All right, so here's mine. When you run into something interesting, drop everything else and study it. Whew. Sarah, what do you got?
Okay, this is like really hard. I'll just say that it's really hard to pick one, but I have a few, so I'll just read the one that stands out to me the most. Education is what survives when what has been learned has been forgotten. And so I think there's so many layers to that, but really just speaks to me.
That's a great one.
I have goosebumps. That's awesome. Elizabeth, what you got?
It is so challenging. Oh my goodness. But one that really, really speaks to me is this. A failure is not always a mistake. It may simply be the best one can do under the circumstances. The real mistake is to stop trying. That just speaks to me on so many levels. I can't even begin to say. My husband and I talk to our son. We have a 9-year-old son, and we teach him this every day. He's a big sport kid, and he takes his job serious. And he can be hard on himself, and so we do instill that in him, that the failure is to stop trying. And so we learn from our mistakes. And I always tell him, it's scary. It's uncomfortable. It's messy, right? But we have to embrace it because it means you're learning, you're evolving. And I always tell him that courage is being scared and doing it anyway. I tell him this all the time, literally almost on a daily basis. Courage is being scared and doing it anyway. And he does, he listens. And it's just so powerful. And I take those words as well because, there's a lot of opportunities where you're nervous and you're scared. I mean, Jonathan, this is one of them, a podcast, right? And so it's a great opportunity, but of course it creates, feelings of anxiety and what have you. And so, that's my favorite quote ever.
Oh, I seriously have goosebumps in hearing these. And this is just a testament to the power of BF Skinner, of our science, and to what you all are celebrating and promoting in World Behavior Analysis Day. And I'm honored to be a part of it. So before we get to the hot take questions, where can our listeners find each of you and WBAD online? Elizabeth, you want to go first?
Yeah, if anyone's interested in emailing me, they can reach me at president@behavioranalysisday.com. We're also just WBAD in general is on Facebook at World Behavior Analysis Day. We're on Twitter at Behavior Day, Instagram at Behavior Day, and like I mentioned prior, soon to be LinkedIn. What am I missing, Sarah?
I think you got them all. We also have a YouTube if you want to leave a comment there. You can find me. I'm like the face behind all the socials. So anytime you message Behavior Day or WeBad, it's me. So I'll be there to answer.
Awesome. And listeners, please drop in the show notes, drop a comment in our YouTube channel or online for us, your favorite BF Skinner quote, or how you're going to celebrate World Behavior Analysis Day. Make sure to tag it with that hashtag, World Behavior Analysis Day. All right, are y'all ready for hot take? Because here we go. This is going to be rapid fire, quick, short answer. Why don't we do Elizabeth first, then Sarah for each of these. Sound good? All right, Elizabeth, you're on your deathbed. What's the one thing you want to be remembered for?
Number one, being involved and loving parent. number one in my life.
Sarah?
Bringing people together.
Nice. What's your most important self-care practice? Elizabeth, you go first.
I can only choose one. I have three. Exercise, huge stress reliever for me. Shopping, reading. Those three.
Nice.
Exercise and meditation.
So if you could cancel all meetings and skip all your responsibilities for a day, how would you spend the day, Elizabeth?
Definitely, if it's a nice day, beach and read. Absolutely. Whatever it is, even if it's a bad day, reading is involved.
I would wake surf behind our boat at a lake in Arizona.
Yay. Love that. What's your favorite song ever?
My Wish, Rascal Flatts. Favorite songs to my son.
Nice.
Fun fact, I don't have a favorite song.
That is fair. That's totally fair. If there's one place in the world that you think should be on everyone's bucket list, what is it?
For me, I have two. Absolutely Fiji. I am going there one day. I do not care how it's going to happen, but it will happen. Or Japan. Need to go.
I would say Turks and Caicos.
Great beach areas. All right, and then last question. You can only wear one style of footwear for the rest of your life. What would it be?
Slippers. And I have a story about that. So I'll let Sarah go, and then if we have time, I would love to share this story with you. It's hysterical.
I would wear Adidas slides.
Nice. Right on. Elizabeth, yes, we want to hear that story.
Okay, slippers. Okay, let's go. Rewind a few years ago at NYSABA. I was presenting with a dear friend and colleague, Amanda Nara. And it just so happened that Greg Hanley was the keynote for that conference that year. And so Amanda and I were sharing a room. It was about 6 a.m. I said, let's go to the coffee station in the lobby before it gets crazy, right? So put my slippers on. I said, no one's going to be there, right? Put my slippers on. She was in her pajamas. We walk up to the coffee station. Guess who's there? It was almost like there was a spotlight on him. The only person at the coffee station was Greg Hanley. So I had to make a split decision. In the slippers. I'm in the slippers. I had to make a split decision. Either, fight or flight. I could turn around and run away, or I could just go up there and say, hey, how are you? So I decided to fight. So I went up to the coffee station. He's there pouring his coffee. I mean, it's noticeable. I have slippers on. And I said, listen, I have slippers. It's early and I did not expect to see you. So he laughed, and he gave me some great words of wisdom. He laughed and said, you never know who you will see in the lobby. So I said, I will remember that for the rest of my life, and I will not be wearing slippers at the coffee station anymore. So I was known as a slipper girl, by the way. That's what he called me for the rest of the conference.
Slipper girl. Yeah. That's amazing, Elizabeth. Honestly, what I took away from that is I'm going to lean into slippers because it can work.
It's a conversation starter, right? Yes.
Right? Exactly. Yes. Lean into the slippers. Well, I so appreciate y'all coming on and chatting about World Behavior Analysis Day. More importantly, I appreciate your leadership in our field and your work disseminating our science. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. I had fun.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Building Better Businesses in ABA podcast. Stay tuned for our next exciting episode. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. We value your feedback. Don't forget to follow us on social media at elementrcm.ai.